The hum of the oil refinery was a low, rhythmic heartbeat that Zara had listened to her entire life in the coastal port of Bandar Abbas. At 22, with a degree in maritime logistics that now felt useless, she spent her days helping her father mend fishing nets, a trade they were forced back into as the docks ground to a dead halt. From the shores, Zara watched the gray silhouettes of the U.S. Navy warships sitting on the horizon like iron sentinels. The full blockade was absolute. No crude oil was leaving, and the giant shadow fleet tankers sat rested and idle, pinned against the coast. That morning, rumors swept through the port. One of the heavy Iranian flag tankers, the Apadana, was going to make a run for it. Loaded with crude, its crew was desperate, willing to brave the blockade to break the chokehold crushing their families' livelihoods. Zara's older brother, a merchant mechanic, was on board. As the sun began to dip, casting a deep crimson glow over the strait, Zara stood on the stone jetty, her heart hammering against her ribs. In the distance, the heavy chug of the Apadana's engines vibrated through the water. But as the massive vessel cleared the bay, the ominous drone of American surveillance aircraft began to circle overhead, and two sleek destroyers sped in to cut off its path. The tension was suffocating. Through her grandfather's old binoculars, Zara could see the Apadana pushing stubbornly forward, a small David against the massive American Goliaths. The U.S. destroyers flank it closely, their powerful searchlights cutting through the deepening dusk, blinding the bridge crew. Suddenly, static crackled on the small maritime radio Zara had smuggled onto the jetty. A calm, stern voice, speaking accented but clear Farsi, cut through the white noise. "This is the United States Naval Forces. Tanker Apadana, you're in violation of the internationally enforced embargo. Heave to immediately. Your current course is unsafe. Repeat, heave to." The Apadana made no move to slow down. Zara's brother was down in that engine room, she knew, keeping the turbines screaming. Then came the response, crackly and defiant, from the tanker's captain. "We are in Iranian territorial waters. We carry bread for our people, not bombs. You have no right to starve us." A chilling silence followed on the radio. On the horizon, Zara saw the silhouette of one of the U.S. warships change slightly. There was no smoke, no flame, but a sharp, localized flash from a deck-mounted weapon, not a missile, but something else. A moment later, the Apadana shuddered violently. Its engine noise choked, then died completely. The massive vessel began to lose headway, drifting helplessly in the current. A high-energy microwave pulse or laser had instantly fried the ship's electronic control systems, leaving it a dead hulk, just as Zara's brother's life, and the livelihoods of everyone in port, went dark. On the bridge of the USS Cole, Captain Marcus Vance lowered his night vision optics. Through the thermal feed, he watched the Apadana lose power, floating helplessly as his crew executed the non-lethal system strike with surgical precision. To his tactical team, it was a clean, bloodless victory, a massive tanker neutralized, the embargo upheld, no lives lost, and no oil spilled into the Gulf. "Target dead in the water, Captain," his chief weapons officer reported quietly. "0 casualties." "Good work," Marcus said, though his eyes remained fixed on the darkened ship. He knew that to the world watching through satellite screens, this was just a stat on a board, one vessel intercepted. But as he looked through the high-powered lens toward the coastline, he caught the faint glint of light reflecting off a glass lens on the jetty miles away. On that jetty, Zara collapsed onto her knees, the cold concrete biting into her shins. In the dark engine room of the dead vessel, her brother was trapped in pitch blackness, surrounded by dead electronics and rising heat. The ship wasn't destroyed, but its spirit was. Behind her, the lights of Bandar Abbas flickered as power grids strained, another reminder of how deep the economic chokehold had tightened. For Captain Vance, standing on the deck of his billion-dollar warship, the blockade was a mission to enforce global stability. For Zara, standing in the coastal wind, it was the day the world decided her family's future was acceptable collateral damage. As the two looked across the quiet water, Separated by miles of ocean and opposing flags, they were linked by a silent, heavy realization. In a war of economic attrition, the rail strikes are felt long after the engines stop. Marcus ordered his team to prepare fast rigid-hull inflatable boats with a reconnaissance team to inspect the condition of the tanker and ensure there was no environmental threat. He decided to lead the boat party personally. It was unusual for a captain, but something about this silent standoff off the Iranian coast gave him no peace. At the exact same time, consumed by despair and fury, Zara convinced a local fisherman to head out into the open water on a fragile wooden boat. She had to reach the Apadana no matter what, just to make sure her brother was alive. The tiny motorboat cut through the waves in the pitch darkness, navigating around coastal debris and dangerous currents. As Marcus's boat approached the darkened, dead giant, their powerful searchlight cut through the blackness, revealing not a military vessel or saboteurs, but a tiny fishing boat pressed against the tanker's hull. Standing right in the beam of light was Zara. She didn't hide. She raised her trembling hands, sheltering her boat with her body, and the look in her eyes was filled with such icy pain and determination that Marcus froze for a second. It was the first time since the blockade began that the American warship captain saw the human face of those whose lives were being shattered by this silent night. For a long, agonizing moment, the heavy hum of the ribs engine and the gentle slapping of waves against the tanker's steel hull were the only sounds in the night. The searchlight pinned Zara in a harsh, white glare, casting a stark shadow across the dark water. Marcus raised a hand, signaling his crew to hold their fire and lower their weapons. The tactical adrenaline faded, replaced by the heavy reality of the situation. Over the boat's loudspeaker, he spoke himself, his voice carrying across the narrow gap between their vessels, not with the booming authority of a commander, but with quiet restraint. "We are not here to harm you," Marcus said in English, then nodded to his translator to repeat it in Farsi. "We are securing the vessel. Is anyone injured?" Zara stood her ground, her voice raw as she shouted back over the roar of the sea, pointing toward the towering shadow of the Apadana. "My brother is down there. You turned off their power, you crushed our city's electricity, and you call it non-lethal. You don't see us as people, just targets on your screens." Her words hit Marcus with the weight of an anchor. Through his visor, he looked past the strategic maps, the embargo coordinates, and the geopolitical objectives. He saw a sister fighting for her family in a world where two global forces were grinding ordinary people between them. He authorized his boarding team to go up with emergency medical gear and power generators, ensuring the trapped crew on the Apadana had air, light, and safety, a small, unauthorized gesture of humanity amidst a cold, unyielding blockade. The emergency generator hummed to life on the Apadana, casting a warm, amber glow through the portholes and bringing air back into the stifling engine room. Minutes later, Zara's brother emerged onto the deck, alive and uninjured. Through the dim light, he locked eyes with Zara, holding up a hand to show he was safe before the American boarding team escorted the crew toward the transport craft for processing. Standing on the deck of his RHB, Captain Marcus Vance watched Zara turn her wooden boat back toward the shoreline of Bandar Abbas. There were no victory cheers, no medals for this mission, and no headlines celebrating the standoff. The blockade would remain in place, the geopolitical machinery would keep turning, and the ships on the horizon would continue their silent vigil. As the coastline faded into the ocean mist, both Marcus and Zara carried the weight of that quiet encounter. On one side stood a commander bound by duty, on the other, a young woman fighting for survival. In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Persian Gulf, the war was fought not just with missiles and blockades, but in the quiet, unseen spaces where human lives collided with the decisions of nations. This story is a powerful reminder that behind every global conflict, geopolitical decision, or military blockade, there are real human beings. On both sides of the standoff are those simply doing their duty, and those whose everyday lives are shattered in an instant, showing that true humanity is measured by the ability to see a person, not just a target on a radar screen. If this story touched your heart and made you think, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new, deep, and captivating stories. Hit the like button because your support means the world and helps the channel grow. And ring the notification bell so you are always the first to know when a new story drops and never lose track of our channel. Thank you for being with us, as there are many more incredible stories ahead.